Iris Hastrup. I'm from Chicago and I go to Wellesley College. Mainly, I enjoy skateboarding and DJing. Like, I have my own DJ mixer, so I usually do that in my free time, and then just skateboarding around where I live. I don't really consider myself an activist. I'm more comfortable with the term community organizer. Maybe it's just my almost internalized imposter syndrome. So I feel like sometimes that label has so many weight, thinking about all the other activists we know, like Angela Davis and John Lewis. So I feel like I'm more comfortable with the term community organizer. In some ways, I feel like it's a privilege. I feel like now, a lot of older people are looking to young people to lead, so they really want to help. But then sometimes when it comes time to organizing people that might be reluctant to help, it's difficult when people don't. Sometimes I feel see you as quote unquote legitimate and you're the way you ask for stuff. So I feel like it's a balance between older people wanting to help and then some older people feeling really skeptical. Definitely, yeah. I feel like being young, you have kind of more your ground to the ear, so to speak. So it's the problems that are discussed now. I feel like when you're older, you get kind of caught up more in your own life. But since when you're younger, you still have more easier to delve into these topics more and then have more, I feel a younger person's insight, since you are, I feel quote almost less brainwashed in a way. You don't have as much preconceived notions of what society tells you to. Now, even talking to my grandmother, she was in the civil rights movement, marched with Dr. King and did public health work in the South. And even talking to her, she's these kids, they're so violent, they're doing so much. Older people should put themselves in our shoes to understand our perspective and why we are fighting so hard. Specifically for me, I was 13 when Mike Brown was murdered. My coming of age time has always known about police violence in a way that I feel previous generations could have been at least more oblivious in a way, especially because of social media. These images are seen constantly and there's less of a speculation. When George Floyd was murdered, people can say well, it was maybe this, but it's no, we saw the physical evidence. So I feel now, because of the high media aspect, we all know what's really happening out there. So that type of objective nature to viewing what's happening in the world, it can't really be as strong as I feel it was in the past. I feel for me, I've been involved with activism spaces for I feel a pretty long time now. My friends created the organization Youth for Black Lives, which now I'm the current president of. And I feel being a part of that helped cement that type of wanting to advocate for myself. But I feel now with the Southside grocery pickup, what made me want to be more into it was the mayor of Chicago. She raised the bridges on the north side of Chicago, and Chicago is extremely segregated. So if you were Black, you couldn't go up north, and if you were white, you couldn't go down south where all the Black people live. When the protests were happening, she gave a curfew 15 minutes before the curfew actually started, and she stopped the CTA and the bridges were lifted, so no one could have left the downtown area, kind of just trapping people inside. And then since schools are closed, kids could still go to school and get food if they needed it, bags of food for their homes. But she ended it for like I think a day, like being like, oh, like this is like retribution, like because it's not safe, which I feel like she was just trying to, I feel like, punish Black people and like divide the Black community between like activists and like non-activists, which I obviously problematic. So after that, when I saw it on the news, I was like, that's like so many people that don't know where like the next meal is going to come from. And then I just created a flyer on social media, and then I've just been like doing it ever since, like getting groceries from other people. People donated like money, so using that money to like buy groceries also, and then just throw community events around, just like celebrations. 'Cause I feel like also like in Chicago, like everyone knows about Chicago violence, and I feel like having events that surround like Black joy help, I feel like, make us feel better. I feel like it's impacted it a lot. Like I was talking to my sister about it, and I feel like Chicago, since it is like the most racially segregated city, and I say like racially, not class, because like my grandparents like created their own landscaping company, like very middle class, but they're like the only like house on like their block, because it's like, if you were, unless you're like literally the Obamas, like you had to live in like subpar like communities that like weren't invested in. And I feel like having kind of like a unified experience of like no matter what class you were helps motivate you into like fighting for like justice. Chicago is very much a union city, and like advocating for like union and pensions. And even with that, like I feel like that creates almost a semblance of like a class solidarity, even though like of course like racism is like still very strong in the city. I feel like even though that type of advocating for workers' rights has always been a presence here that is like inescapable. I feel like we also have the most corrupt government out of like every other city. Like our last few like governors have been like put in jail for like crimes. I feel like just like the political like corruption also makes people have to like fight even harder for what they want. Usually like canvassing like the flyers. I usually like, me and my friends will print them out and then just pass them around like in people's mailboxes and stuff. But most of the times, like I use social media to get like volunteers and like monetary donations and stuff. But when it comes to the actual like passing out groceries, like most of those people, it's like they see it on the street and they just come by. Like it's never like, oh, I saw this on social media. It's like, since it's like there's such a need, it's like people just walk by and be like, oh, like I need this, this, and this, and then they just come and then they just get it. This is the strongest, I feel like, activist presence I've seen in Chicago in a while because of COVID-19. Like yesterday, my mom went to an event and was like a public baby shower kind of, where they were just giving around like baby food, diapers, like there were instructors, like doulas, like being like, this is how your body, like what happens through birth, and this is what happens like after birth, and like adjusting and like just helping. I feel like specifically like since Black women, like the medical industry, like we are impacted a lot by like mortality rates when it comes to birth. Like that's super important. Or just like there's so many, I see like, that's why like I can't even say social media is bad, because I see all these events on social media, seeing like how many people are being impacted through just communities helping out communities. For me, like my proudest accomplishment was the Juneteenth event that I hosted, because I planned that in like the span of 10 days. And we had like with like a bunch of different organizations, like there was like, of course, the grocery giveaway, but also this restaurant donated like 500 like free tacos for the event and lemonade. And then there were different workshops, like a skateboarding giveaway, like painting and art lessons, just so many different activities for the community, which I feel like just seeing that in like such a short amount of time that I was able to like very much just like flesh everything out with performances, I feel like was kind of my highlight of the summer so far. My like grocery pickup page is at Southside Grocery Pickup on Instagram, and Youth for Black Lives. Our Instagram is at Youth for Black Lives, and my personal Instagram is Semi Grown Folk. So those are just three different platforms. Like the personal one is just like, of course, just like for me, but like the other two is just like specifically activism work.